Welcome back to the Investor Professor Podcast. This is Dr. Ryan Peckham, and this is episode 106. On today's episode, we're going to discuss managing financial stress. So we went to the people, we did a poll. What was a topic that you wanted us to cover? And this was resoundingly number one, with 60% of the vote. And so that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about financial stress, how it impacts people, the ways in which it manifests itself. And then we're also going to talk about some strategies and things you can do to kind of mitigate it and do so in a way that is sustainable over a period of time so that hopefully you do not have to deal with it anymore. So that's what's on today's episode. Get your mind right and let's get to work. Well, welcome to another episode of the Investor Professor Podcast. And I appreciate you joining me today. We have a more serious topic. As I said in the introduction, we did a poll. What's a topic you want us to cover here? And number one came up, 60% of people voted, managing financial stress, right? Managing financial stress just always seems to come up when you're looking for topics, things that people want to get better at. So we're going to try to help you out here. I want to do this in maybe a different way, share some experiences, share some things that I've seen for people. But I want to start out with just telling you how prevalent this is, right? So CBS came out with an article a couple months ago, said that 1/3 of U.S. adults are stressed about money. 1/3, right? 1 out of 3. And this data came from the Associated Press, NORC, Center for Public Affairs. Always like to give that data when I can. But it even showed that 25% are food insecure, can't afford a nutritious meal. And you don't have to be a financial expert to understand this. You go to the grocery store and you try to buy apples, you try to buy, fruits and vegetables, things that are nutritious for you. And it's amazing how much more expensive that is than a box of processed food or going to McDonald's or someplace like that, right? Like it is costly to go eat a nutritious meal. It's the whole reason that Whole Foods is called Whole Paycheck. That whole thing. On June 15th, CNBC posted an article, said that 73% of Americans rank finances as the number one stress in their life. So all across the board, we're seeing 1 out of 3 people, 1 out of 2 people, everybody is stressed about finances. And what could be the cause of this? If you look at younger generations, the number's even higher, with Gen Z saying that 82% of them are worried about money, and millennials, 81% are worried about money. Now, that one kind of makes sense because when you think about those age groups, these are people who grew up with, 9/11 and the financial crisis and now COVID, and all of these are supposed to be like once in a generation type crises, but they're coming every 10 years. And it's like you can't seem to get ahead. You just, like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I think for a lot of people, they feel like they're not making, much traction when it comes to their financial situation. The average car payment this year hit $725. So, and that's the average. Like we have the highest number of car payments above $1,000 than we've ever had, right? You can thank inflation for that. Zig Ziglar had a great quote. And Zig Ziglar was kind of this personal development guy that I was introduced to when I was in my early 20s. And he said, money isn't the most important thing in life, but it's reasonably close to oxygen on the you gotta have it scale, right? So money isn't everything, but it's pretty close to breathing. It makes your life harder in almost every single way when you're worried about money all the time, worried about how you're going to buy groceries, worried about how you're going to pay rent, worried about making it to the end of your paycheck. Like, it's not a good place to be because it stays in your mind and it just sits there, and that's what you're thinking about all the time. And you look at kind of how we got here, And one of the things when I was thinking about doing this podcast and I started thinking about it, I'm just thinking about different generations, right? So before World War II, boy, say that 5 times fast. Most of the time in most families, you had the mother stay home, the dad worked, and the mom was a homemaker. And so most of the prices of things were based on one income, right? Because most people had one income. Well, then after the war, I can't even say that. After the war, you had baby boomers, and you kind of had the start to dual income families. Well, that was a great way to get ahead, right? Well, man, instead of just having my salary, hey, if we both work, we have 2 salaries, we'll be able to afford a lot of stuff. We'll have a lot of disposable income. We'll be able to make our house payment. And so then you slowly started having the dual income families emerge. But now everything is based on dual income families, and it has been based on dual income families for a number of years. So if you're single, or if you're a single mother or a single father, or if you're a retired person on your own, or, if you're just a party of one, or, or if you have kids involved, it makes it very difficult. Even if you're young and you're trying to start out, it makes it very difficult because now house prices are based on 2 incomes. Everything's based on that. And so it's kind of reset. And then you have these prices that are based on 2 incomes. And then you add inflation on top of that and everything starts to rise. And so you see all these memes and TikToks and everything else talking about how much a first-time home buyer house is today versus what it was in 1980, and you look at the percentage of the percentage of income and how much that was and how much it's gone up, and it's pretty daunting. It's pretty daunting, and so it makes us feel no matter where we're at, how can we get ahead? Well, now that we've had these dual income families, well, that's not really going to help you out anymore. That's just going to help you be kind of where everybody else is. So now what do you need to do? Well, now this generation, younger generation, what's the new thing? Well, the new thing is the side hustle, right? So it's not good enough to just have one job. You got to have a side hustle, something on the side where you're bringing in extra income. And maybe that's how you get ahead. So you have to look at what's going on around you and how you can somehow find your way of getting ahead. And it's difficult. It takes a lot of hard work. There's not the same opportunities out there for everybody, depending on where you're at. And so it does make it more difficult. And I think that's one of the main reasons why it feels so much harder to get ahead. And it's one of the reasons that you got to start early if you want to have a shot. And so we see people that, go back to school. I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my MBA. I'm going to do whatever. But the problem with that is if you don't really know what career you want and you just go after an MBA, there are so many people that have gone to get MBAs. I teach MBAs, but there's so many people that have gone to get them that if you don't really know where you want to be, then it's, it just gets watered down. Now, all of a sudden, everybody has one. So if everybody has one, is it still valuable? Like I tell students who know they want to be in finance, maybe instead of getting an MBA, maybe you go get a master's in finance and economics, or you go get some kind of certification. And that's kind of the new thing. You see these certifications coming up. You see, LinkedIn certifications or just different types of software or data analysis or whatever it is. And so when you look at your own finances, you got to be able to think about what's going to be the easiest, not the easiest. I mean, these things aren't easy, but what's the best strategy for you to maximize your talent and your ability to generate income for yourself? And so we're going to look at a couple examples of this, but I want to look at just the effects that financial stress have on people. The top things that financial stress can cause for people are insomnia, weight issues, either gaining or losing weight, depression, anxiety, impacts on your relationships. Then you have people drinking, whatever. There's the different coping mechanisms for dealing with financial stress. And so I would add on here that social media has also, sent this. and made it, worse for people because you log on to a social media site or whatever, and everybody's putting their best life forward. And, it's basically people are posting pictures of their vacations and all their niceties. And so you sit there and go, why don't I have that? Or, you're just constantly comparing yourself to others. And so you really have to look at where you are right now and how you can improve that. Right. So if you read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, he discusses, instead of thinking I can't afford that, think how can I afford that? Right. Changing your relationship with money. How did your parents talk about money? I did my whole PhD thesis on this very thing. Were your parents good with money? Were they bad with money? Did they not talk about money? Based on how your parents were with money impacts your ability to manage money. If your parents were terrible with money, it's hard. That's the hardest place to start, because you really have to educate yourself, which hopefully is why you're listening to this. You really have to educate yourself on money, that money isn't a bad thing. Just changing your relationship with it. And so education and educating yourself on things matters a ton. And especially when it comes to money, being educated, knowing how it works. I mean, you just have to know it. And I'm not saying it's fair. The system is not fair, but there's a lot of things that aren't fair. There's a lot of people who work really hard, doing tough jobs, and they're still working, tons of hours and paycheck to paycheck. So it's definitely not fair. But you got to figure out, if you want to not have to worry about it, you got to figure out where you're going to make that improvement for yourself. So one of the areas that I feel that we've done a terrible job as a society is that people generally don't like talking about money. They don't. So because we don't talk about money, when somebody needs help, they don't know who to talk to, and they're not comfortable talking about it. And as I see when I meet with clients and people who are older, there's this kind of conception that if you make a lot of money or, have a really good job or whatever it is, that you should have all the money issues figured out. And so then you'll get the couple that comes in and they really haven't done things, but they think they should know, but nobody ever taught them. It's not like you had a money class in high school or, that we don't do a good job of financial education. And so later on, when somebody's older, let's say they're 40 years old, they don't want to ask those questions because they feel like they should know it already, even though nobody's taught it to them. And so that kind of perpetuates the problem. Families don't talk about money. Parents don't talk to their kids about money. And so then it just becomes this thing that if you need help with it, you don't know who to go to because you've never had the conversation with anybody. So talking with somebody that you trust, somebody that can possibly help you is key. It's paramount. I mean, when people talk to me about working with a financial advisor or working with me or whatever, like 80% of the relationship is enjoying who you talk to, being comfortable with who you talk to, and being able to really have real conversations and to have somebody hold you accountable, right? A personal trainer for your finances is basically what it is. And then looking at your finances. Of course, over the last 10 years or so, there's been a lot more subscription services. So when you look at your finances, used to your bills would come out of your check every like the 1st or the 30th of the month, right? The beginning or the end of the month. Well, now we sign up for all these services. And so we're getting dinged by Netflix and Spotify and the gym and all that at weird times during the month. And so then that just becomes like death by paper cut. Right. We just have all this. We have these debits coming out, and we really can't account for them because they're just kind of going all the time. So one of the things that most people do not do anymore is just print out your bank statement and look where you spent money last month. And I'm not saying this is going to be a good exercise. You're probably not going to like it. It even happens like people like me. Like I did this years ago, but I almost ran out of money. And I was like, what's going on here? Print out my bank statement. I'm looking. I went to Walmart like 11 times. And I still use this example in class to this day. I went to Walmart, it might even been more than that, 11 to whatever times. Of course, I'm going for one item, right? Like I'm just going to run into Walmart. I just got to get this one thing. And then of course I'm doing the juggling shuffle to the checkout lane because I went in for one item and now I'm balancing like 9 things that decided to look good. Well, you do that so many times a month, and impulse buying is a real thing. And you're going to overspend. So just even so I said, okay, I'm going to go to Walmart once a week. Go once a week. That eliminated a lot of those impulse buys, but it's not something I would have caught unless I printed out my statement and actually looked at where I was spending money. And so we think, oh, I didn't buy that many things. I didn't buy that much stuff. You go have a really good weekend and then you check your bank account on Monday and you're like, who stole my card? Right? Like we have all been there. Everybody has been there. We have all done that. And so, looking at where you're spending money, looking at what you're doing with your discretionary income, right? What are the things, where's my discretionary income going? This is one that couples struggle with a lot. If you have 2 people that have recently gotten married, they're not used to managing their finances together yet. It's we put all of our paychecks in one spot, and then all of a sudden, like, where did it go? Did he spend it all? Did she spend it all? That kind of thing. So couples have to get together and say, okay, we're putting this all in. Usually the easiest way to do it is to say that we each get so much that we get to spend per month, and the other person cannot say anything about it. So whatever that number is, let's say it's $100. If I want to take $100 and go spend it over here, and she wants to go spend $100 and spend it over here, we can't say anything about it. And then come up with a number based on your finances that no matter what, if we go over that number, we have to talk about it first. So whether it's $250, $500, you got to, tailor this to you and your situation. But if it's over that amount, we got to have a conversation about it. And so if you do those 2 things, you can really kind of negate a lot of the issues that couples struggle with. The big one, though, is having your own money. Like, even if you're a couple, you're both working hard, you want to have your own money that you can spend up to a certain level that the other person does not get to have a say in. Like, you have to keep your own identity. And that really helps with just feeling empowered, and you both still feel like, okay, I have a little bit of my identity with me. That can save some marriages for sure. And so you look at all these things of ways to manage money, paying down your debt. I talked about this a couple episodes ago about looking at where you're spending, or looking at your credit cards. What's the interest rate that they're charging you? Because now with interest rates going up, they can charge you more. So making sure that you're on top of that. But then there comes an issue where you can do all the planning you want. You can cut all the expenses that you want. But sometimes it comes down to how much money you're bringing in. Are you bringing in enough money to even allow yourself the option to do these things? And so that is a hard conversation. Because, we talk about investing in the stock market on this show and doing all that. But if you're not bringing in enough money to even be able to save 25, 50, whatever it is a month, you got to give yourself some breathing room. So you got to figure out how you can bring more money in. Is this, I know people that are driving Uber at night, doing Uber Eats. I know people who are delivering packages for Amazon. I know somebody who's a CPA who works at Discount Tire on the weekends. I know people that are doing all kinds of things to bring in extra income to get ahead. And it's like, their point of view is, I'm willing to sacrifice for 5 years to change my life. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, work whatever job it takes to be able to bring in income for the next 5 years to change the rest of my life. And so you got to be that kind of person. You can't just be the person that's going to complain about it and sit on the couch and talk about not having money, but you're not really doing anything about it. When I was younger, the max I had was 3 jobs, right? I talk about that a lot. I've worked at the bank, worked at community college teaching, and then I had my investment practice when I was building it up. And did I take a risk? Yeah, I took a risk. I used to get these because I had 2 health insurance. I mean, that's not something to like, I had 2, but they were like, the jobs didn't know about the other jobs. So I kept getting these letters that were like, hey, are you covered somewhere else medically? And I started my own company. And then the bank president, got a list and showed, and I made something up. I took a risk. I mean, if I would have gotten caught, there probably would have been some consequences. But how else are you supposed to get ahead unless you're willing to do some of those things? Like, you got to be willing to do some of this in order to get ahead. I was thinking about how, some people always ask you, like, what do you wish your superpower could be? And it's like, hey, I want to fly. I want to be able to lift heavy things. The one thing that most people never mention is like, I wish I didn't have to sleep. Can you imagine if you're one of those people that can actually survive on 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and you could just really hustle for 20 hours and not break concentration? I mean, that would be a superpower to have. I am a horrible person if I only get 4 to 5 hours of sleep. But when I did my doctorate, I was doing it from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. I did that as long as I could until my body basically said, we can't do this anymore. But you got to look at what are some things you can do. I mean, there's a lot of things people can do from home now. There's a lot of things that you can, that you don't, like, there's no rule that says you can only have one job. There's no rule that says that. So you got to figure out what's going on and do some things to get you where you want to be. And so, sign up for that class, sign up for that seminar, sign up for that course that's going to give you, an end to the industry that you want to be in. Because at the end of the day, like we talk about investing in yourself, financially, physically, and mentally, and you are at the end of the day, you are going to be what drives your income. Like, there is no goose that laid the golden egg in your garage. Like, you are that goose. You have to be the goose for yourself. And so you got to figure out a way, how can I make a little bit more money until this takes off, or until I get here? And you'll be surprised at what you'll come up with if you just allow your brain to think, like, how can I afford this? What are some things that I can do to get where I want to be? I've seen some great stories, throughout the years. I've had moms and dads bring their child to class, and they're doing night school, and they're always like, hey, can I bring my child? I'm like, yes, you can bring your child. I actually encourage it, because I think it's a great lesson for their kids to see them working hard at something, right? If you're a single parent, or if you're a parent at all, like, your kids are going to notice the things that you're doing. If they see you working hard, if they see you putting in the time, when it's their turn to do those things, they're going to remember you doing those, and they're going to remember the difference it made on your life and their life. It's up to you to change your family tree. So there are some things you can do to manage this financial stress. A lot of it comes down to knowing you have something better on the horizon that you're working towards. If you have a goal that you're working towards, that makes today better, because you realize, okay, if I keep working hard, I'm going to get there. And so, yeah, this isn't the job I want to be doing, but I know it's going to get me to where I want to be. And if you have that kind of mindset, it doesn't really matter what people tell you. You'll be able to get there. So you got to see it before you can achieve it. And so think about it when you're listening to this. Design your life, and then backward engineer it, trying to figure out how you can get there. And so if you're trying to get into a different industry, look at the education that you're going to need, look at the courses you're going to need, and go after them. Even if you're doing one course at a time, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Everybody's story is different. So don't let somebody else's timetable influence you. You just have to kind of chip away at it. And it's always, whether it's something personal, whether it's investing, it's all about consistency, right? Consistency, making consistent improvements. And that will get you to where you want to be. So hope this is helpful for you. I enjoyed doing this episode. If you have other topics that you want us to discuss, hit us up on Instagram, find us, send us a direct message. We'll be happy to cover any topic that you want us to discuss. So, man, I covered a lot of stuff today, and this is going to be fun because Reaching Dreams, the marketing company that does all the Instagram and all the social media, they're going to have to go look all this stuff up. And so I like challenging them. So this is going to be a good one. Good luck, guys and ladies. All right. So again, don't mistake activity for achievement, and I'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody.